Recently, I've read a few interesting obituaries, and I want to share my thoughts on some of these important people, lest they be forgotten from history. So, the first guy is Russell Peterson. Russell Peterson was a research scientist and chemist at DuPont, one of the world's largest chemical companies. After he left DuPont, he became a one-term governor of Delaware. One of his signature achievements in Delaware was to oppose industrial companies like Shell and DuPont and implement a law that protected Delaware's coastline from more industrial development. After he got this law passed, the Nixon administration brought him to the White House to question him on why he was threatening the economic prosperity of the nation by passing this restrictive environmental law. And he actually gave a very persuasive argument to the administration as to how you can foster economic growth and industrial activity without damaging the environment. His argument was so persuasive that Nixon appointed him to a high-ranking environmental position in the White House, where he went on to achieve many other things. Later in life, he's actually a very outspoken critic of the Ronald Reagan's administration environmental policy. So any critic of Reagan at the time is a hero in my book. Peterson also served as president of the National Audubon Society and expanded the role of that organization. At one point in his life, he was instrumental in the movement to phase out CFCs, which at the time were depleting the ozone layer. And during his term as governor, he was instrumental in bringing black people into positions for the first time in the state of Delaware. So when Russell Peterson passed last week, the world lost one of the good guys. Next on the list is Nobutashi Kihara, a Japanese engineer for Sony who was the innovator and driving force behind many of the products that defined the electronic age and that made Sony so famous. He was a big fan of Betamax, even though they lost the war to VHS, and to his dying day, it appears, he insisted that Betamax was superior technology. Alright, the next guy is a medical researcher who did a lot of work with flu vaccines. In 1976, there was a very dangerous, hyped up outbreak of swine flu. And this fellow, who was a principal advisor to President Ford, wrote an editorial in the New York Times about how dangerous this swine flu epidemic was and how everybody had to get a vaccine, which of course he developed. Later, it turns out his vaccine sickened many people, and in fact, a few of them even died from his vaccine. His name, Edwin Kilbourne, proving once again that sometimes name is destiny. And finally, Frank Buckles, the last American World War I veteran, at least known veteran. He joined the army by lying about his age when he was 16 to fight in World War I in France. He drove an ambulance. Now we look at that as heroic. He served his country even at the tender age of 16 by going over to France to fight a war. If someone did that now, some 16-year-old wanted to go to Iraq or Afghanistan to fight for America, I'd think he's an idiot. The fact is, World War I was not that much more noble than some of these wars we're fighting today. So I question his decision at 16 to go to France to fight World War I. But he survived and led a long, prosperous life to the age of 110. In fact, he was on business in Manila when World War II broke out, and he was captured by the Japanese and held in prison. He had to be rescued by the U.S. Airborne after he had lost 50 pounds already being detained. So he got involved in both World War I and World War II, one by choice, one by circumstance. So that's it. That's 4 people who passed away in the past couple of days, and the world is very different because they lived.